Yo, 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 it's your girl and boy CT. I'm Cindy Barnes.
And I'm Travis Barnes.
And we are the founders of the Overcomers podcast.
Sponsored by Journey 333. That is a place of mind, body, spirit that helps you with fitness, coaching, and nutrition to look better, live better, and feel better. We produce these episodes every week for your enjoyment to help people to overcome adversity and live their dreams. Hey everybody, welcome to the Overcomers podcast. Super excited today. I have a guest with me, David Richman, who has wrote a book called Cycle of Lives. As you know, the Overcomers podcast is sponsored by Journey 333. That is a place of fitness, coaching, and nutrition, mind, body, spirit, where we help you to look better, live better, and feel better. Today, I get the pleasure of talking with David Richman, who, as I mentioned, not only wrote Cycle of Lives, but he's somebody that's been on the journey just like many of you, because I know we have a lot of fitness enthusiasts listening. So he's gone from overweight to, well, I'm sure he's going to share with you about some of these awesome fitness events that he's done, but running for 24 hours straight, just cycling through Mexico, all kinds of amazing things that he's done. I can't wait for him to share the reason behind what he's doing and the book that he's written. David, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Travis. I'm excited to be here talking to you.
Well, thank you for being on here. David, if we could, let's talk about why you wrote Cycle of Lives and why you're doing what you're doing. I mean, the inspiration behind it all.
Sure. I mean, it's a little bit to unpack, but I'll try to be succinct about it. I wrote Cycle of Lives as a mission. I was on a mission to try to help people navigate the emotional journey with cancer, and not just people that get cancer, have cancer, but caregivers, loved ones, survivors, doctors. Like, how do doctors deal with the emotional journey of cancer? Medical professionals, how do they deal with that? So when my sister was diagnosed with terminal brain cancer about in 2004 or 5, maybe about 2004, I kind of noticed when she was going through this journey that and eventually about 3-4 years later she passed away, but I noticed that people were not often well equipped to have the hard conversations about the emotional side of it. Mm-hmm. And what I saw on a very, very recurrent basis was that people could deal with, like, how do I get to the doctor? How do I arrange for childcare during chemo? How do I navigate insurance at work? How can I put together a plan to eat better, get more sleep, reduce stress, whatever? But they weren't really well equipped to deal with the emotional side of it. And so that was the genesis of the idea for the book. And, there's obviously a lot more behind it than that.
Yeah, I love the book's title, giving the fact that you're a cyclist and given the fact that we all have a bit of a cycle of life, as you will, or sometimes called the circle of life. But, you had to go out in order to do the research and find what you wanted to find. You had to find 15 special stories, and I think that not only do we get inspired, of course, by those that are closest to us, and what a tribute to your sister, what a way to honor her. But I guess I'm curious about, as you investigated other stories, what the consistency was that you found along the way.
Sure.
In some of those stories.
Sure, Travis. Well, to take that kind of analogy a little bit further of the cycle, right? Take a wheel. A cycle wheel, right? And divide it up into little pieces, right? And little sectors of that wheel. What I wanted to do, Travis, was to find people that I felt could give us a 360 view of that emotional journey. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to go, point A was when they encountered cancer. Okay. So either as a kid watching a parent go through cancer, or maybe as a kid going on a field trip middle school to a hospital and deciding, oh my God, I want to be a doctor, or, as an adult when, a family member might get cancer, or a coworker, or a friend. So I wanted all different ages, all different types of cancer, all different emotional responses to cancer, because not everybody has the same response. In fact, the range is from A to Z of emotional responses to the cancer. And I wanted to get stories that were interesting enough, but point A was when they encountered cancer. Point B is today. How did they or how did they not navigate the emotional journey of that in relation to all the traumas before A? So, people that grew up in the backdrop of maybe suicide of a parent or abandonment, or maybe in abusive relationships, or they had drug addiction, or they had some other major traumas that I could relate to, that I believe the reader could relate to, so that I can understand how these traumas, how these real life people who I could identify with, are we're dealing or not dealing with the emotional side of trauma of cancer, which oftentimes we don't know what the heck they're going through or whatever. But if I could connect with them on a certain level, then it might make me be able to go a bit further. And so that was the first part of your question. The second part is kind of what did they all have in common? And I say this not tritely, but they all had in common, their stories were unbelievably fascinating. They were very inspiring. So they were very hopeful and inspiring stories. A lot of them dealt with transformation from one place to a much better place. So that was there. They all kind of had a sense of abandonment. Either they isolated, or they felt abandoned by their loved ones on the emotional level, right? Because it's like, people just don't know what to say when you're going through something super difficult. And so those are some of the similarities. There were more, but those are some of the more stark ones.
Yeah, I can relate to that. It's very fresh. My wife is only just over 2 weeks out of surgery, but when we first got the info, which was a voicemail from the doctor, she had gone for a biopsy, and the voicemail said that you have cancer and you're going to need surgery. And yeah, right. I mean, as a voicemail,
over a voicemail. Thanks.
Yeah, right. And I still get teared up. I'm getting teared up right now just talking to you about it, even though she's on the better side of things, because it was so emotional. It was like she's crying, and I don't know why she's crying. And so I ask her, and then she tells me about the voicemail, and then we, call the doctor back, and he's busy. And I say, well, let's get in the car and we're going to go down there. We're going to talk to the doctor, like we're going to find out some more about this. And I have this fix-it attitude, but in the back of my mind, the whole time I was wondering, well, what if I can't fix it? Like I have this way about me there, I'm going to take charge and I'm going to fix it. But, it's so tough. And then of course she's going to go through the anticipation of the surgery, and then, what will they tell us after the surgery? Because they have to do the surgery first to see if it was contained or if it spread other places. And there's all this intense time of being in suspense, and you don't know how to necessarily help somebody through that, because, it's kind of feeling intense on your side because you love them and you don't know what to say, and you don't know if they want to talk about it or if they're trying not to think about it. And it was challenging. It's challenging. I'm thankful that my wife had the type of cancer that's very treatable. As I shared with you off the air, my nephew had the type of cancer that was not very treatable, and we've lost a nephew. So I thank you for what you're doing to help us understand the emotions of our loved ones, or even the emotions that we might feel if, God forbid, faced with that. I did have another question that I wanted to ask you. When you're dealing with the book itself, I know that some stories have happy endings and some don't. Is there a mix of those in your book? Just different times.
Yeah. Well, I'd say that each one of the stories, even though sometimes they're wrapped around pretty heavy and maybe even tragic things, do have an inspirational, forward-thinking, a transformative quality to them. And here's why. It's because I can't take anything good from on the surface of what your nephew must have gone through, or what his loved ones have gone through, right? That you can't even begin to wrap your mind around the tragedy that must be around that kind of thing. the reality of this in one facet is that the people that he left behind are actually, they have to move forward, right? They have to figure out a way to move forward. I can't even imagine how difficult that would be. Um, it's just mind boggling. You can't wrap your brain around it, but there is the reality that they have to move forward. I mean, they have to live, they have to wake up each day. And I think that, excuse me, sorry, Travis. I think that if we can just learn maybe a bit more about what even the tiniest little piece of moving forward might look like, or with a tiny little piece of just connecting with those loved ones left behind might look like, if we can just engage in one more meaningful conversation with those people, if we could just connect with them on a certain level. And as you just said a minute ago, you were like, I don't know if she wants to talk about it. I don't know if she doesn't want to talk about it. I don't know what the hell to say. She's crying. Do I make her feel better? Do I not make her feel? I mean, there's a million things in different directions you can go. And oftentimes what happens, Travis, is that people kind of avoid. They tiptoe, they walk on rice paper because they don't want to, I don't want to create waves. I don't want to say the wrong thing. I don't want to be an idiot. Right. But if we can learn from people's experiences, that maybe the best thing to do is to just fight and figure out a way to get a little bit closer, even if we say the wrong thing, even if we look like an idiot, even if we, in retrospect, go, man, I should have waited, or I should have. I'm telling you, it's just helpful to people. It's helpful to those that have to continue to go on, right? Whether that means your wife in 10 years reflecting on this, or the loved ones of your nephew, there's a way for us to connect with them on a deeper level. And it's so easy to not do that. Yeah. It's so easy to just close it out and go, oh my God, I don't know what the heck to say. And I definitely don't want to say the wrong thing. So it's better not to say anything at all. Yeah. That's so much easier to do. And I just, in the end, Travis, don't believe that that's what we really want as human beings. And so I think what the book does with these stories, although some of them are tragic, they all have a hopeful, forward-thinking, inspirational spin to them, and they're not all heavy. Many of them are much lighter than dealing with such heavy things as death and how to move on from it.
And when you say inspirational, the inspiration I guess that's the next question is, what do you hope that the readers take away from it? Is it the inspiration of being able to look at various situations and say, as the title of the Overcomers podcast, figure out how to use some tools or resources or examples of, how people dealt with a situation in maybe a bit of an overcoming manner, overcoming, what do you hope that they get from it? What's the inspiration?
I'm going to give you a little bit of a different answer to that. So you go to your website, right? And I love your graphic, and I forget what it's called, where you power words and whatever, and the use and whatever. And I saw in there accountability, and I went, what is accountability? And certainly accountability to oneself is way different than being accountable to other people, right? That's what motivates you, is to being accountable to yourself. And I think that that accountability to yourself means being honest. Okay? And I honestly, I'm not motivated at all, Travis, by having somebody give me some kind of saying that I can hold on to. Okay. Like, oh, just take one more step, or just do one more rep, or figure out how to see the sunshine every day, or something like that. It doesn't resonate with me. But when I hear a story and I understand the emotion behind that story, and it's an insight into how somebody went from point A to point B, then I'm inspired, and I'm moved to apply that to my outlook on life or my vision. And so I'll give you a super quick example. Okay. I use this example a lot, but I think it's super poignant. If you were to tell me, hey, David, I know you're going through something difficult. The best thing you could do is just put your feet on the ground each day and try to start that. And I'd be like, yeah, okay, Travis, you're kind of a jerk for telling me that. That doesn't make any sense to me, right? But when one of my stories is Patricia, and Patricia had dealt with 5 different types of very serious cancer over a 35-year period. Travis, imagine that. All different kinds of cancer, right? She had everything cut out that could be cut out, as much chemo as you could ever imagine, and can't take anymore, as much radiation as you can imagine, thousands of hours of treatment over a 35-year period with her husband at her side, right? She met her husband, though, and didn't encounter her first cancer until after she was able to escape a very brutal, abusive relationship. She was stuck in that relationship until she could figure out a way to escape, form a new identity, start her life new. She met somebody. They're still together decades later, but during those decades, she fought cancer all these times. And just, it's an amazing story of resiliency, amazing story of ownership of your health, and just so many other things. And I asked her one day, I said, Patricia, what's your key? Like, how did you do it? She goes, you know what, David? Every single day, I just got up out of the bed and I put my feet on the ground and I made my bed. And sometimes I had to fall right back into my bed because I didn't have the strength to do anything more. She goes, and sometimes I was able to take a few steps. And sometimes I was even able to go about my day, sometimes for months at a time. She goes, but my goal every single day of my life is to put my feet on the ground and make my bed. Oh, holy crap. Like that I can apply.
Yes.
So even though it's a tragic, moving story, right, of this woman and all the things that she's dealt with and all of the pain and difficulty that she's had, and how she survived and thrived and just lived this amazing life in the backdrop of all of that. And I hear her say to me that her goal each day is to put her feet on the ground and make her bed. That to me is like, wow, I can identify with that. That's inspirational. It's very moving to me.
Yeah.
And so each one of these stories kind of has that like spin to it, like you get inside somebody's head to understand like really what moves them and drives them to deal with the emotional side of things. And I think that's what the reader can take. I know it's a long answer, Travis, but hopefully that explains like what I was trying to do with the book and how it can be applied to the reader. And now when I take that kind of story, like I told your listeners about Patricia, and I talk to somebody and I try to say, hey, I know it's difficult, but gosh, you know what? Let me tell you a story about this woman. Then maybe that could be applied, and maybe it can make a difference or a deeper connection. Does that make sense?
I can definitely understand how that would be much more powerful and much more appropriate for somebody that's, needing something than just like that kind of, quote or whatever, as we would say. So let me ask you, though, something that I did in the intro that we haven't talked a lot about is just how the stories of the endurance athlete, riding across the country and, just how it all ties in, like how it all comes together, All
right. Well, so that's again, that analogy, right? The cycle of lives. And I thought if we're all connected by story, and I think as human beings, that's what we're connected by, is the stories we tell. And if we're all connected by emotion, that's the 2 things I think all humans have in common. We love stories, and we all have the same basic emotions. And if I'm going to connect these stories, I figured what better way to connect the cycle of life stories than to cycle to each one of the people who I had been talking to on the phone for a couple of years. So I had found all these people, and way more than 15, but 15 made the book. And I'd been talking to them for a couple of years, really uncovering the deepest, darkest, most hidden away parts of their lives so that I could tell their stories. And then I thought, well, let me be the thread that binds those stories together. So I biked across the country in a zigzaggy kind of way, California, through Texas, down the Panhandle, down to Tampa, across to Orlando, and then up to New York City. And I did it in just 45 days. So I was booking But that's why I just thought, hey, it adds another dimension and is also a deeper level of the cycle of lives, right? Mm-hmm. It's the cycle to go see all these people. So that's coming from, and anybody who's listening to this will understand that that's coming from a guy who 15 years previous was a very overweight smoker, sedentary, never done anything in his life athletically, as an adult. And yeah, so I had gone from kind of couch to having done 15 Ironmans. Now I've done 18 Ironmans and 5,000-mile bike rides, and you name it, all from a position of never having done any of that. So I just wanted to add that extra facet to it.
Well, that's awesome. And I mean, what commitment. I mean, to cycle thousands of miles to all the people that you interviewed and around the country. And, life is an endurance test in itself. And, to just be on that kind of an endurance ride, that's pretty amazing. Also, kudos to you for getting off the couch, and instead of couch to 5K, you went couch to just absolutely amazing with all the Ironmans and everything else. That's just phenomenal and inspiring. What role, you made a commitment to your sister before she passed, and I guess I just wanted to know how big of a part that's been in some of these events that you've chosen to do, or just if you could share with our listeners a little bit about that.
Sure, and thanks. It's a great question. It's a good story in that you never know what is going to motivate you to accomplish your goals, or when you see, if you just step back and pay attention for a minute, sometimes those are the most moving things. And, people don't think that their lives are interesting or anything about them is spectacular. People are just living their lives. Right. And so, but if you step back as an observer and watch that, sometimes it really can be quite touching and motivating and inspiring to kind of see what drives people on an emotional level. And then, and so oftentimes that might touch you in a way that sticks with you. So when my sister, at the point when she told me she had cancer, and she had a wonderful family, beautiful kids, and wonderful marriage, and just a great life. And I was kind of at a low, but I was now starting to go on a journey. I love your journey 330. I was starting to go on a journey of self-discovery and health and fitness and wellness and endurance. She was going on a journey towards what would be a certain death, but we were both taking that journey. And near the end of her life, she was really excited to be able to go watch this 24-hour relay for life that was being done. And there was a team of people that had amassed to give her, support and honor her and all of this stuff. And all she wanted to do was to be out there on the track to watch these people that were there to support her. And I thought, man, that is a really powerful driver for you. And I promised her that if she went out there for the whole 24 hours, that I would run the whole 24 hours out on the track, or at least be on the track the whole 24 hours. And it was kind of sad because she died like 2 days before that event. So she obviously wasn't there to witness everybody, but I went and I did it, and I noticed all the people and all the love and all the difficulty, and just, that's where the seeds of the book came from. And I just thought to myself, how wonderful of a thought it is that all she wanted to do was just watch people give her love and support. And I mean, that was the thing that was driving her. And I just find that so touching, that it wasn't about anything other than her feeling the love that other people had for her. And that's a thing that just lifted her and lifted her spirit. And I don't know, I just find that super touching that somebody's going through something that difficult can be so moved just to see that people care and that people are doing something to benefit them and showing their love and their emotional support. And so that's why I carry that around when I do these endurance events. It's like, yeah, it's okay that it can be inspirational and emotional and whatever, because these things are emotional. And so that's the backstory behind all that.
Oh, that's amazing. And as a company at Journey 333, we always go to these events with our members and participate in different things. And we participate in Relay for Lives.
Mhm.
But I've never heard it told to me so well, in such a way that, now motivates me to say, well, when's the next one? We go to Komen runs and different things like that. When's the next thing that our Journey members can be part of and that we can all go to together, realizing from your perspective, how much it means to some of those that are impacted by these types of cancers.
Yeah, for sure, Travis. And you know how when you go to these Relay for Lives, there's music and there's balloons and
Mhm.
there's posters and people are doing whatever and they're raising money and they're doing fun games, unfreeze the bra and put it on and race. And I mean, all these fun stuff to raise awareness and whatever, and then include everybody. And even though it's a heavy, heavy day and heavy subjects, there's a lot of levity and positive and optimism and whatever, right?
Mhm.
Then if you've been there at night, when they light the candles in the bags
Yeah.
and it's a kind of a remembrance lap, remembrance
Mhm.
time, it's dark, everybody's quiet, there's
Mhm.
not anything going on in the background. People are just kind of walking around this track in a very dark, quiet manner to kind of contemplate and remember things. Isn't that just an analogy for when it comes to the emotional side of it? We oftentimes are walking slow in a dark space, very quietly. God, wouldn't it be great if during the emotional stuff, that's when we were talking to each other. That's when we were exchanging
Right.
energy and all of that, right? Instead of kind of isolating and kind of bounding ourselves in this like inner space, how about if at that toughest time, when it's like the most emotional time, we felt comfortable to talk to each other and hold each other's hands and look at each other and go, oh my God, what the heck is going on through your mind right now?
Yeah.
Right. It's really interesting. I'd
Um,
love to hear your perspective on that down the road if you ever
wow.
go do that again.
Yeah, well, definitely, definitely, and we do need to connect more. When I think about like different words that mean the most to me, one is connect. I try to realize the present moment as often as I can, and just take time to connect with people. I heard a good quote the other day, and it said, speaking of your walk for
Mhm.
life and a moment of remembrance of those that have already, maybe completed their journey here on Earth, said, what if we're all just walking each other home? And I thought that was pretty cool. It just made me think,
Great.
we're
Yeah.
spiritual beings going through a human experience, and we should talk about it more along the way. And I'm glad that your book really stimulates people to do that. So in this project, you've learned a lot, and that's a good thing. What you're sharing right here is, to maybe engage more different things. What are two or three things that you've gotten out of like the entirety of this project, cycling and interviewing so many and
Mhm.
15 people making it into the book and the commonalities? There's just so much. I'm sure you probably have a couple of really big takeaways in this, that our, listeners could benefit.
Sure. Oh, I do. And it's really been quite inspiring to me. And I love talking about it because I think it's a message that many of us could hear. And I could hear it. Like I've interacted with a lot of people on a very deep level, even prior to this book, right? I've managed intimately hundreds and hundreds of people. I've managed through a suicide of a worker and how that affected, everybody. And I've dealt with just all kinds of heavy stuff like we all have, right?
Mhm.
What's fascinating to me is through all of that, I can say that I am a little quick to judge what I think somebody might be going through or what they might have gone through or what they need or might need. And I realized I have no freaking clue. I just don't know. But if I can ask a couple of questions and I'm like connect with them on a deeper, more intimate, personal level, then it's really easy to figure that out. But so I think one thing I learned is not to assume what people are going through and what they have gone through, and how that might affect them emotionally. So in other words, if somebody just lost a loved one, I'm not going to assume that they don't want to talk about it. Maybe they do. I'm certainly not going to assume that they do want to talk about it, because maybe they don't. And I think in the past, I might have easily come to those conclusions so that I could escape having a tough conversation with them. And now I have the tough conversation so I can find out what they want, if it's important for us to have a deeper connection. And that we'll usually find that common ground and connect at that deeper level. Right. So that's something that I learned that's very, very helpful.
Do you just ask? I mean, do you just ask people like if they want to talk about it? Or, I mean, sometimes things are simple but profound, right? I mean, like, how do you said in the past you might have judged, now
Yeah.
you maybe investigate, instead of assuming. Yeah.
Let me tell you a super quick story. So I was talking to somebody, and he said to me, dude, I feel like such a jerk. He goes, because I had a really good friend who was dealing with a terminal diagnosis of cancer. And, not right at the end, but near the end, I mean, he came over to my house 3 or 4 times. He wanted to talk, and, and I tried to talk to him, but then we just ended up sitting down at the television and watching football. And, every time I tried to engage him, he just didn't want to go there. And now he's passed. And I feel like, geez, man, like, I should have connected with him at a deeper level about some of these heavy things that he was going through. And I said to this guy, I go, I got a different perspective. How about the only place where he could go and not talk about it was with you? Maybe he was so overburdened that everybody else was just beating him up emotionally, or he was beating himself up emotionally because he was dealing with all his heavy stuff and heavy conversations. And you were the one place where he could go and just watch football, right?
Yeah.
And not talk. And I said, and he goes, oh my God, wow, that's going to give me a lot of peace. So I'm thinking to myself, what I've done over the last few years, and I didn't do that before, is I'm comfortable saying something like, okay, Travis, instead of going to a natural place of, are you okay? Do you need anything? Because that's a real easy out for both of us.
Sure.
I'll say to you, I'll go, hey, you know what, Travis, I really want to take the time to talk to you right now, but I just don't know if I should force you to talk to me or if I should leave you alone, because I'm not sure what you need. Can you talk to me about what you need? Because if you need to talk, I'm definitely here. And if you need to not talk right now, maybe at some point in the future, tell me and I will not bug you. But I'm just letting you know, I want to connect with you, but I tell me what to do.
Wow.
That's a different way.
Yeah.
Harder conversation to have, more honest, and it gives you both like a sense of like, it's safe. It's safe to tell me what you want and what you need.
Right. No, that's really good. That's really good. I like that. Anything else that you'd share with people? Because this is good. This is stuff.
Yeah.
I hope everybody's tuning in and picking up these gems, because this is how we handle these situations, and this is how we make a difference in the lives of those that we want to make a difference in. Anything else?
Yeah. I'll tell you, this is maybe a little out there a bit, but I also have come to maybe be a little bit easier on judging what people can and can't handle. Okay. Because I feel like maybe it's disempowering if somebody is being okay with something that you're not understanding how they're okay with it, or they're handling something pretty well that you don't think you could handle. I think we need to let go and let it be okay. There's a great story about Bobby. Bobby was not lovable and couldn't love, right? He just wasn't in a space in his head where he was ever the kind of guy that could do that. All of a sudden he meets somebody who, the way he puts it is beautiful. He says, she made me see life through a new pair of glasses. Right. Just everything came into view. They had this crazy, beautiful love affair. Shortly after they met, though, she got cancer, and they got to know each other as she was sitting in the chemo chair. Right. I mean, really, that's how new it was after they met. But it just this beautiful love. And he asked her to marry him. She got cancer again. They got married. Unfortunately, the cancer metastasized, and she died very shortly after they were married. And it's very, very tragic, very terrible. But during her end of life journey, Travis, they were able to connect and talk about everything you could ever imagine, right? Just unbelievable, like A to Z, everything. She convinced him he has to move on. He has to take therapy. That's okay to lean into his best self. It's okay to have happy days ahead of him. They were really good about talking about everything, right? So when she died, he had processed a lot of the loss and a lot of the difficulty, and he prepared himself that he's going to have to figure out a way to go on, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he kept running into people that wanted to have so much sympathy for him and wanted to make sure they understood how hard it was on him right now. But it wasn't that hard on him right now. He had grieved before. He had grieved in a very positive way. He had Brandy had forced him to kind of move on from the negativity, but people were holding him down and saying, no, you should feel terrible. You must be having a tough time. And he just wanted to break free of that. And the end of his story is just lovely. He met somebody. They're still married. They do an event every year in Brandy's honor, and he's very close to his past and his present. But he says to me, he goes, look, I don't want my life to turn out this way, but I'm the happiest I could ever be, and I wouldn't change it for 1 second. Right? I'm the happiest I could ever be. I'd never change it. Of course, I didn't want what happened to happen, but he had to literally go to a different place physically. I'd go on a plane and go somewhere where people didn't know him, so that he could be his real self. He had moved past things. And so the lesson behind that long story is, one of the other things I learned is, don't assume that something is really difficult on somebody if it's not. And don't assume that it's super easy on them because you think it would be easy for you. Maybe it's unbelievably difficult.
Yeah.
So I think just forming that little deeper connection and just getting a little bit deeper, and not prejudging whether or not somebody's journey is easy or difficult by assumption, right? Because it's kind of disempowering to what they're going through. So that was one of the other kind of major lessons I learned.
Those are good. Those are really good. When I say those, I'm thinking about the fact that the first one is to really investigate, if somebody needs to talk, and be okay to just be present without, feeling like they need to talk, like as in your friend with the football, and then this one, not judging, because it's also relevant, right? Some people have this amazing ability to be at peace, even though the world is falling down around them. And some people can't find any peace regardless of what's happening, so
absolutely.
That's really good. That's really good. It must have been a very positive thing for these different people that you've interviewed to, have a interaction with you, and it's inspiring to me to think about how I can have a positive impact on people that are going through such a thing. And I think that that's what I want to, of course, take away from your book and today's interview. How do you think that learning what you've learned and learning to interact in the ways you've interacted, and I'm sure you're still in touch with different people from the book. So, how do you think that you've affected them and what you've done,
This is a deep question. Because I don't know if I have credit for impacting them, other than maybe having held up a mirror, I guess, for them to kind of take a deeper look at themselves and what they went through. And then while they were looking in that mirror, they were kind of telling me what was going on so I could write it down.
Yeah.
Right? So I don't know if I mean, there were a couple of people I know I had a very positive impact on, because the transformation that they went through was something we went through together, which was wonderful. It was wonderful and super genuine and amazing for me. And I could tell you some really just moving stories from that. But I think that they had more of an impact on me, and I know they have an impact on the reader. I mean, I get notes all the time. It's unbelievable. I'll get a note from a doctor saying this is making me a better doctor. Or I get a note from a nurse saying, I had no idea this is what my patients were going through. I've been a nurse for 15 years. I'm going to work with a whole new attitude. Or I got a note from somebody who said, I can't believe what so-and-so went through. I know somebody that was going through this, and I had no idea. that these things were going on in their head. And I'm just like, wow, that's kind of cool. So I think if there was a positive impact, it was theirs on me and their stories, hopefully on the readers. So, yeah, I'm not certain that it was more than just good timing and a good mission and a good purpose, all kind of wrapped up at the in the right way.
Really good, really good. Well, this is what every listener wants to know then. One, how they get a copy of Cycle of Lives. I think, tell us about that. Like, is there an official website that they, get previews or whatever, but tell us a little bit about that, if you will.
Sure. Thanks, Travis. So 100% of the proceeds from the book are going to support the cancer-focused charities and other organizations that were chosen by the book participants. So that's 100% of the proceeds. So those are listed in the book. Actually, they're listed on my website, cycleoflives.org. You can go to a website and order a signed copy, or you can go to Amazon or Barnes & Noble or your local bookstore or wherever books are sold. The book is sold everywhere. It did finish last year as the #1 bestseller in its category, which is pretty awesome. The audiobook is coming out very, very shortly, which is really cool. And it's a really good read because, first of all, the #1 comment I get from everybody is, I thought the book was going to be way heavier than it was. It's very inspirational and hopeful and forward thinking and transformative. And I like that. But I think what everybody has told me about the book is that it's really easy to read because each story is self-encapsulated. And so you can read one of the stories and then put the book down for a week or a month or whatever, and then pick it up, and you don't have to remember where you left off. And each one of these stories, can sit with you and marinate with you for a bit if you wanted to. I mean, some people have read it straight through, but I think it's an easy read. I think it's a helpful. It gives you some insight into the human experience, and then also it raises a little bit of money.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I mean, 100% of the proceeds. I just think you're amazing. I think you got a great mission, and I love what you're doing. Even the different endurance events, the interviews, the cycling to the interviews. And you mentioned that you can go to the website and get a signed copy. So the website is cycleoflives.org, right? Is that
correct?
Okay, cycleoflives.org. And if people want to engage with you and get more of you, is there any social media links or where they can find you cycling next? Or
yeah, you know what? I just did a Ironman number 18 in Tennessee about 10 days ago.
Wow.
And, I just got back from my second run since then, and I'm just like, I'm still feet are a little sore or whatever. But I have social media, Facebook and Instagram and that kind of stuff. I think if people are interested, they can learn more by visiting those or by visiting the website. I do a lot of public speaking. I do quite a few interviews on great shows like yours, and I think they're all pretty cool, and the messages are awesome. So if anybody wants to continue to receive a little bit of motivation, you can head over to cycleoflives.org and check things out.
Okay. And they can, even if they want to book you as a speaker, because perfect, they can do it through that website. Yeah.
And I do a lot of that speaking for free to organizations that are, focused on, cancer care and community service and that type of stuff. So I love doing it. I've been fortunate in my life that I'm in a place where I can do that. And so, I love doing it.
Well, thank you for doing what you're doing. I appreciate it. Most of the listeners, if they haven't been personally impacted by cancer, then they've been affected because they know a loved one or a family member who's had it. And I just think it's an important mission that you're on. And David, thank you. Thank you for doing what you're doing. And thanks for being on our show today.
Absolutely. You're welcome. And keep it up, man. I love your whole message and what you're doing. And good luck to you and your wife as you move past her little detour. And thanks for having me on.
Thank you. Hey, thanks for tuning in to the Overcomers Podcast, sponsored by Journey 333. When I am not hosting the Overcomers Podcast, I am working at one of our fitness franchises so that I can continue to help people overcome adversity on a daily basis. That's right. People come to the Journey 333 fitness franchises because they want a coach in their life. They want somebody to help them overcome the adversities of life, motivate them to higher levels of greatness, bring out their potential, help them lose weight, get off medications, fight depression, fight anxiety. That's what we do on a regular basis. If you feel like you want your life to be about helping more people to overcome their adversities, if you feel like you're an overcomer and you want to create more overcomers, then maybe owning a Journey 333 franchise would be for you. To find out more, go to www.journeyfitness333.com.